Previously on Higurashi When They Cry Console Arcs.
お母さん、お父さん、助けて、早く助けに来て。
落ち着いてまどか。とにかくここから出るのよ。
出るってどうやって？階段こんなに燃えて降りれない。私怖いよ。
I looked back at my room beyond the hallway and gazed out the window. Right, there should be a garden just below my room. The ground there is all dirt, so it's unlikely the fire has spread there.
窓か、窓から下に降りるよ。
そんな、どうやってこんな高さから飛び降りたら怪我しちゃうよ。
怪我と死ぬのとどっちがいいの？私にしがみついてなさい。早く。
お母さん、
After hearing that, Maka pushed me aside as I stood there absent-mindedly, and she dashed toward the stretchers. I rushed after her, but there was no time to stop her.
待ちなさい、君！
やめなさい！見ちゃダメ！見るな！窓か！
お母さん、
Maka approached the stretcher and tore off the white cloth, allowing both of us to see what lay underneath. It was...
窓か！しっかりして！窓か！
Why? Why did this have to happen to our family?
お前らのせいで俺の娘は
石を投げつけた人は周囲の警察官によって取り押さえられたとのことです。ただその怒りたける感情は私たちにも理解できるものです。何しろ今回クラシルの副作用で病状が悪化した患者の数は現状確認できるだけでも500人以上。もともと分母の小さな精神疾患の分野においてこの数値は異常なものと専門家からもご意見をいただいております。さらに患者が死に至った事例もいくつか判明しています。
現場の吉村さん、護送される大沼容疑者の様子はどんな感じでしたか？
はい、ちょっと車内が暗く覆われていて、しかも大沼容疑者は頭からすっぽりジャケットをかぶっていましたので表情などは分かりませんでした。ただ関係者の話ですと警察官が彼の職場に訪れる前から落ち着き払った表情でもはや覚悟を決めたという様子であったとのことです。
以前の取材では確か自らの潔白を訴えておりましたよね。そのあたりはどうだったのでしょう？
残念ながらその点につきましてはまだ不確定な状況ですので今後の関係者への取材によってご報告したいと思います。現場からは以上です。
I turned and stared at the bar. It was faintly quivering to and fro, but in the end, it was still on the poles, standing still. The next moment, I heard Tsukada's senpai cheering.
やったぞ未来！自己ベスト更新だぞ！
はい。
I was delighted, and for a while, I just laid there motionless on the mat, with my arms and legs spread wide. This feeling, this joy, is something I'll never forget. I held back the tears welling up inside me, while carefully reflecting on that thought.
ちくしょう！ちくしょう！殺してやる！未来さんをあんな目に遭わせた奴ら！絶対に全員この手でぶっ殺してやる！
Maeno was pushing his forehead against a tree trunk, letting out a beastly roar filled with anger and sobs. The burning flames emanating from his sharp glare, and the look on his face as he roared like he was breathing fire, was something I will never forget. After that, Maeno became so absorbed in searching for the culprit that he forgot to even eat and sleep. Ever since the investigation headquarters was established within public security, even people who knew him in the past couldn't believe their eyes when they saw him.
絶対にこの山だけは他の連中にやらせない。
Maeno went off to gather information on his own after declaring that, without relying on the other investigators. Even though he had several other cases he was investigating at the time, and continued working like it was no burden at all. If my sister wanted, she could enjoy living in a lovely dorm, with no need to worry about tuition or food money, and it would even get her some pocket money to cover other expenses. And yet, my sister turned down that happy future. And rather than gripe to me about it, she was acting like it just never happened. It's exasperating, unpleasant, and regrettable. Not to mention, I couldn't help but hate myself for still having nasty feelings toward my kind-hearted older sister. What should I do? Just what on earth can I do for her? When I suddenly looked up at the sky, with the blink of a star, I recalled the postcard that arrived the other day. It was from an older ex-boyfriend. He was leading a pop music band, and he moved to Tokyo after graduation, working at a ball called Star near where he lived. Oh, I see. So this is where she got the idea to leave. That's right. I still had an option. I'm sure my sister will be very sad and upset about it, but I think this will ultimately make her happy too. So, I've decided. I'm going to leave this town and disappear from my sister's life.
正直に言ってこれまで私はひなみ沢症候群という風土病についてはあまり興味がなかったのだよ。核はともかく生化学についてはぜひとも研究を進めたいものが他にも山ほどある。それなのに小さな村に起きた特殊な風土病に予算を割り当てるのは無駄遣いだとな。実際脳に入り込んだ寄生体が人の意志や精神を乗っ取っていたなんて話は出来の悪い SF の類。医学的には論ずるに足りんことだ。そう思わんかね。
先生のおっしゃる通りです。実際小泉先生の多大なご功績には尊敬の念を禁じ得ませんが、あの高野とかいう女研究者に何らかの弱みでも握られているのではと邪推したくなるほどのひいきぶりでした。
Look at you, Nomura, talking out both sides of your mouth. Using one side of your mouth here to encourage Takano, and then the other talking bad about her to your sensei. You're a real two-faced liar.
その点につきましては、予算を仕切って管理を行うはずの我々の力が及ばず、誠に申し訳なく思っております。
いやいや、あの小泉王に逆らうのはなかなかもって大変なことだ。君たちのせいだとは思っておらんよ。だがこの試験薬に汎用性があるというのはひょうたんから駒というやつだな。実に運がいい。新発見とは無駄な研究から生まれ出ることが多いというが、まさにその通りだ。ぜひ今後もこの試験薬のデータ収集に努めてくれたまえ。
ありがとうございます。そう言ってくださると、私どもも実行に踏み切った甲斐がありました。
つまり君はこの薬のデータをローウェル社に売れというのか？
そうです。もし入江機関がこの薬の効能を知って権利を日本国内の企業に売りつけたところで、先生が関与できるのは薬事審議会への口添えだけでしょう。そんなことで先生の懐に入り込む額など高ですが、ローウェル社が現在進めている改良型プラシルの研究にこのデータを提示すれば、彼らは以前の名誉挽回とばかりにこれらを高く買い取ろうとするでしょう。もちろん権利の所在は先生にありますから、売上ごとにマージンが追加されます。薬の独占権が5年間だとしても、その間に入ってくる利益は数十億。いえ、ローエル社が世界的な企業であることを考慮すれば、その額は数百億にも達すると思われます。その富をバックにして財界と政界を牛耳り、以後何十年にもわたって先生が閣僚の顔ぶれを決定する。どうです？
And so it continues. Greetings, my name's Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of the Higurashi When They Cry console arcs. So, all the clues are coming together. But we still got a couple pages worth of connecting fragments left to connect, so to speak, before we can bring this particular arc to a close and move on to the next one. So let's see if maybe we can finally get around to finishing all of these, shall we? Now, we were on copy medicine last time. So next on our list is lukewarmed canned coffee. I don't know, does this seem like something that could be even remotely important in the grand scheme of things when it comes to the overall narrative? I don't know. If this turns out to just be an advertisement for coffee, I'm gonna sue somebody. No matter how many times I thought back on it, my anger never subsided. What, did they give you cream in your coffee? You wanted black? After entering the break room, I made sure nobody else was inside, then slammed the personnel change letter in my hand down on the floor. Let me guess, you've been reassigned? It made no sound. Just an empty response as it slid and danced along the floor, before stopping at the foot of the sofa a short distance away.
なんなんだ。一体なんだって言うんだ。
I couldn't understand the meaning of this. The transfer notice itself was messy and inconsistent. The timing was far too abrupt, and the circumstances leading up to it were totally random. As a government official, I realized that personnel changes were something of a regular occurrence. But this particular appointment was completely unacceptable.
なんで俺が広報なんかに。
Oh, public relations too. Just like Tomoe. This may be conceited of me to say, but ever since I was assigned to the career group, I was especially proud of my work in public security. Fighting against terrorist groups masquerading as citizen organizations, and false political groups that exist only to line their own pockets. And even foreign intelligence agencies meddling with domestic politics from behind the scenes. All of them were tough assignments, and there was always risk of death involved in these investigations. There was hardly any time off, and it even caused me to break up with the girlfriend I was dating before I was appointed there. Oh, that sucks. But even so, I felt a sense of purpose toward the mission, that my duties were worthwhile. That's why I accepted the total lack of free time and being buried in work until the moment I went to sleep. And yet...
大体なんで広報なんだ。危険もなければ創造性もない。マスコミ向けの情報提供が仕事。手のいい感触だろうが。
I believe that's the point. So, I cried out. I couldn't help but shout. But just then...
ここにいたか。探したぞ。
As he said that, My boss, Commissioner Yamaoki, entered the room. Then he noticed the personnel change letter on the floor next to his sofa, picked it up and dusted it off, then handed it to me.
辞令書は新しい勤務先の上司に渡すのが基本だ。それにシワをつけたり、まして汚したりしては、かなえの傾聴を問われかねんぞ。君はキャリア組だ。それを知らないはずがあるまい。
I suppressed my exploding anger as I snatched it from him. Even so, I failed to properly control my strength and got a little rough as I did. Now that was a prominent slam if I ever heard one. And apparently they came from the vending machine. Yamaoki-san turned around and bought 2 cans of coffee from the nearby vending machine. Then he said, "Here," as he tossed one my way. I caught the can on instinct, but was surprised as soon as I felt the heat and nearly dropped it. Yamaoki-san watched me do so out of the corner of his eyes as he sat down on the sofa beside me, pulled the tab, took a sip, and then turned back toward me.
ずいぶん荒れてるな。
当たり前です。何なんですかこの人事は。俺なんか失態でもやらかしましたか。
まあ落ち着きたまえ。とりあえずそれでも飲んで気を沈めたまえ。
If you want him to cool off, you should have got him something cold to drink rather than hot.
このくそ暑い中、ホットなんか飲む気になれません。俺は結構ですから。
I slammed the can of coffee down on the table in front of Yamaoki-san as I said that. He wasn't surprised at all, though. He just rolled the can around in his hand and shrugged his shoulders.
候補は嫌いかね。
好き嫌いの問題ではありません。私はこれでも公安の職務に誇りと少しの自信を持っています。それに自ら先頭に立って指揮を取らねば危険を冒して任務に当たる部下たちに申し訳ないと教わってきました。それなのに後方でデスクワーク勤務なんて納得できるわけがないでしょう。
ほほう、候補に候補をかけたわけか。
I think I just heard some Japanese wordplay going on.
なかなかうまいダジャレだな。
私は真面目に言ってるんです。茶化すつもりなら失礼します。
For the time being, I faintly bowed my head and then turned around to find somewhere else to vent my anger. I should head out early today and drown my sorrows in alcohol. I reached for the doorknob as I muttered that to myself, intending to leave the room. But then...
今の位置だと君は消される。状況を理解したまえ。
When he called out to me in that low voice, I suddenly turned back and caught my breath. Yamaoki-san sipped at his coffee while silently pointing at the sofa in front of him, with a look in his eyes clearly telling me to have a seat. I couldn't defy an order from my boss, so I sat down as directed. Of course, I still didn't feel like drinking the coffee in front of me.
消されるってどういう意味ですか。
そのままの意味だ。最近内閣調査室の動きが妙に活発でな。人づてに聞いた話だと、どうやら君の捜査線上の情報提供者に対して二重聞き込みを行っているとのことだった。同じ相手に同じ質問。そんな回りくどいことをしなくても我々に確かめれば済むだけなのに、わざわざ非効率なやり方をしている。
Probably because they're trying not to tip their hand into what they're up to.
しかも我々公安には内密で。
それってつまり。
そういうことだ。
Yamaoki-san gave me an immediate confirmation. CERO is an institution acting under orders from the Prime Minister and other cabinet ministers that handles information gathering and investigation, plus operation and scheming for top secret activities related to politics, business, and the government. In other words, the culprits or key witnesses I was pursuing were government officials. And what's more, these were people in fairly high positions.
待ってください。確かに俺は公安という特性上ヤバい事件をいくつか抱えていますが、みんなそれぞれお偉方の命令で動いているものばかりですよ。それなのに俺なんかを狙って一体どうするんです？お偉方に圧力をかけた方がよっぽど効率的じゃないですか。
ああ、確かに君が今担当している事件には問題がなさそうだな。だが君には心当たりがあるはずだ。数週間前に取った年休の日、どこに行っていたのかね。
それは。
I got flustered and tried to make excuses, but after a quick glance at Yamaoki's sharp gaze, I immediately realized it was useless. He, of all people, probably already knew what I was doing on my time off.
山沖さんに覗き趣味があるとは思いませんでしたよ。俺が女性だったらプライベートの侵害だって告訴しているところです。
So, you don't need a freaking vagina to file a privacy complaint? File away, my man!
見ない警部補の一件は捜査打ち切りとの命令が下っていたはずだ。今のところ私の紫三寸で止まっているが、上に知られると厄介なことになる。まして内調まで乗り出してきたとなれば、
俺も未来さんの後を追って死ぬことになりかねないです。なるほど。それで俺をほとぼりが冷めるまで辺境に飛ばしておこうと。お気遣いはありがたい限りですが、俺だって刑事の端くれです。そんな危険は重々承知の上で。
もっと頭を使いバカ者！お前は未来の仇を討ちたいのか、それとも撃つふりをしたいのか、どっちだ！
I don't think I've ever heard him that angry before. Being struck with that sharp, earnest attack, I couldn't help but freeze on the spot. The hot air that had me sweating just a moment ago receded immediately, and the anger and feeling that I was standing on a slope quickly disappeared.
Maeno, お前は広報というものをバカにしすぎている。マスコミ向けに現場から出された資料をそのまま受け渡す文書係のように思っているのかもしれんが、とんでもない間違いだ。お前をそこに行かせるのは遊ばせるためではない。危険地帯から逃すためでもない。我々警察が権力に対抗するための力を築き上げるための重要な任務をお前にさせようというのだ。もう少しその頭を働かせたまえ。
Wow, looks like I totally misread things a little bit here. Looks like you weren't put in there just to be a pencil pusher after all.
権力に対抗する。
そうだ。白樺山荘、覚えているな。
ええ、もちろん。忘れるわけがないでしょ。
That day, I was shot in the knee by one of the perpetrators, Kazunori Takiguchi. Even to this day, I'm unable to sprint thanks to the wound I suffered back then. But, truth be told, I should have died from Takiguchi's second shot. I was saved by my subordinate, who I considered a blood brother, the now departed Deputy Inspector Minai.
あの事件は T 大学籠城事件の時と違って世論が我々に味方をした。それはなぜかお前は理解しているか。
そりゃじゃあなかった。それはもちろん犯人グループが武装して人質を取った上、警官2名、そして民間人1名を射殺したからでしょう。それだけの凶悪犯罪を働けば大衆の支持を得られるはずがありませんよ。
確かにそういう見解もできるだろう。だが もう一つ思い出したまえ。T 大学籠城事件の時も死者が出なかったとはいえ、警察と学生双方に重軽傷者が多数出た。にもかかわらず、世論は学生たちを支持した。この違いはどこにある？
As soon as Yamaoki-san pointed that out, I could guess what he was getting at. Unlike the TC University siege incident last year, MPD had intentionally set up a public relations officer to handle the press during the Shirakawa Mountain Villa incident. The commanding officer in charge of the raid was killed in the line of duty by sniper fire, so Yamaoki-san was temporarily placed in command. But his original role was to handle media correspondence.
私はあの時広報の総責任者である警察庁の結城幕僚長と共に報道へと発信する情報の整理に努めた。そして彼らには警察官が犯人の一人を射殺した事実よりも制圧作戦で殉職した警察官2名、そしてその家族に関して番組を編成するようマスコミ各社に要請したのだ。
As a result, the police certainly did still receive criticism for taking inappropriate countermeasures against armed criminals. I still think it were quite appropriate, all things considered. But at the same time, public outrage against the armed criminal group increased, and most viewers asked about the police shooting during the incident felt that it was a justified act of self-defense. In that situation, the opposition was unable to speak out about the police officer opening fire, so the topic was shelved as a future issue.
見ないさんが戒告処分で済んだのはそういう経緯があったんですね。
Public relations can be a surprisingly efficient weapon when you know how to use it.
そうだ。それに他にもある。連中は当初別行動をとっていたリーダー格の仲間と合流し、そのため人質になっていた管理人の妻を連れ出して脱出を図る予定だった。だがその仲間がすでに逮捕されている事実を知り断念した。
So, what would have happened in the siege incident if the criminal group had never heard what happened to their comrades? They'd probably steal a car or something and try to escape, banking on us prioritizing the life of the hostages, probably hoping to hide somewhere and bide their time until they could start over. At that point, they may have killed the hostages they'd taken to silence them. In a worst-case scenario like that, the reputation of the police would have plummeted. But without their leadership, they became anxious about the remainder of their plan, so they stopped thinking. There may have been some conflict of opinions with the next in command, so they continued stepping back. They didn't make any demands of the siege officers, and they couldn't even think of securing another escape route.
そしてテレビ画面に映し出された肉親の声、さらに世間の様子を見たことで、自分たちの行いに正当性が見出せないことを悟るようになっていた。それがあったからこそ、連中は逮捕後の尋問に対して自供に応じる気になった。あの事件の解決には報道の力が大きな役割を果たしたと言っても過言ではないだろう。
確かにそうですね。
That wasn't taken into account during a T University incident. The press reporters and photographers were just secured in a designated safe zone. And thanks to that, their cameras only captured video of students conducting heroic demonstration activities. So the reporters even described it as the dawn of a new era in their articles. On the other hand, the actions of the police, especially the riot police, were regarded as evil displays of power, so the general public criticized their oppressive demeanor. Yamaoki of all people recognized the power and value of the mass media, more than anyone.
だが何分新しすぎる分野で今のままだと上層部の理解がついてこないだろう。私自身 それほど広報について詳しい知識や情報網があるわけでもないからね。だからこそ地道に、そして確固たる足場を開拓して築いていかなければならない。責任は重大だ。そして遂行する能力も。それでも左遷だとお前は思うか？
つまり山沖さん、俺にその先兵をやれと、そういうことですか？
そうだ。君が南井君の仇として追う事件に限らず、これからの事件捜査においてはマスコミの存在は毒にも薬にもなるものだ。その動きと流れを掌握するためにも、我々は独自の専門機関を築き上げておかなくてはならない。内閣の連中は内調、自衛隊は陸幕2課、そして我々警察は広報室というわけだ。
なるほどね。
Smart thinking. I felt a tremble of elation run through my whole body, then rubbed my arms. The disappointment and discouragement that had been lingering in my heart until a moment ago were nowhere to be found. All that remained was a sense of purpose for the new mission I'd been entrusted with.
やりますよ、山沖さん。俺はきっとあなたの期待に応えてみせます。それに。
If we could get the power of the press in our hands, we'd even have the power to oppose heads of government. It might even be enough to get the ball rolling to avenge Minai-san. When I thought about that, all the troubles and hardships I'd be facing from now on seemed completely painless.
なら決まりだな。何十年先になるかはわからんが、その日を楽しみにしておこう。
何十年もかけませんよ。10年以内に俺はきっとものにしてみせます。その時にはいろいろと無理難題を持っていくつもりなので、どうかよろしく頼みます。
As I said that, I picked up the can of coffee in front of me, pulled the tab, and held it up to Yamaoki-san with a fearless feeling in my heart. He smiled softly back at me, then picked up his nearly empty can and clanked it into mine. The hot coffee had already completely cooled off, but my entire body was filled with burning heat. Well, I guess if all else fails, we can always initiate a smearing campaign against the corrupt officials. Make doing everyday business a bit inconvenient for them to do, to put it lightly. And I guess maybe we might, well, at least in the previous arc, we were given a bit of a taste of doing just that with Minai. Can't help but wonder how much of a role this might end up playing in the future arcs. Real name Tomoe. What is this, I wonder?
おい、Minai!
Hey, speaking of Tomoe.
例の資料は出来上がってるか？
はい。
It is so odd seeing her in a regular police uniform.
こちらになります。
Tomoe had just finished assembling some paperwork and clipped it all together before presenting it to Maeno. He flipped through it and perused the contents, then lightly nodded and stamped the cover.
問題ない。ご苦労さん。しかしお前の字はなかなかに達筆だな。女性が書く文字ってのは総じて線が細いもんだと思っていたが、まるで彫り込んだみたいにはっきりしていて読みやすい。
それ褒め殺しですか？なんか男の人みたいにガサツだって言われている気がするんですけど。
いや、そんなことないぞ。 少なくとも俺の半象形文字よりは読みやすいからな。そんなわけだから、これからも清少係、よろしく頼む。
調子いいんだからもう。
Nice save, Mr. Stinky Dandruff. Tomoe responded with a smile and a laugh, then immediately spread open another file and began working on her next task. She had a fast pace while doing clerical work, and on top of that, she was able to grasp written materials very quickly. Thanks to that, the time spent preparing documents for submission was significantly reduced, and the stagnant office work was progressing far faster than before.
しかし、あの時はまさか本当に仕上げてくるとは思わなかった。
Maeno recalled a week ago when he left Tomoe some work to do and headed out. Even though she was halfway to exhaustion and had dark circles under her eyes, her pupils were full of a fierce light that left quite the impression on him when she presented him with the stack of material. After giving that order, he went to an off-track horse racing facility in Shinjuku, then went home, changed his clothes, attended some meetings, and finally returned to the office around 3 a.m. I hope your horse is lost.
お疲れ様です。
Alone in that large room, Tomoe raised her head and turned toward Maeno, with a pile of paper cups on her desk giving off the smell of coffee.
お疲れさん。配属初日は定時上がりが基本だぞ。
仕事片付けるまで上がれませんから。それに事件資料を自宅に持ち帰るわけにはいきませんので。
真面目だね。
Despite Maeno's teasing, he walked into the next room expecting she'd still be here. At the very least, he got the impression from their previous interview that she wasn't one to set work aside half-complete, or to head home without first reporting to her boss.
まあ、第一段階は合格。そして、
書類、できました。どうぞ、確認をお願いします。
He accepted the 2 large volumes of documents and quickly scanned through the contents. And then, Maeno uttered a groan of astonishment.
やるな。
If she had finished by first thing in the morning, it would have been a great accomplishment. And even if she hadn't finished it all by then, Maeno would have given her a passing score. But Tomoe had finished the work this early, without even knowing if he'd be coming back or not. She was probably factoring in time to incorporate feedback and corrections from her boss. And what's more, the content itself was nearly perfect.
わざとバラバラに仕込んでおいたのに、しっかり読み込んでやがる。
So this was a secret test of character after all. Looks like I read you right. Maeno was certain she'd be valuable here. Someone with extreme pride in their work as a detective would have seen writing copy as an insult or a punishment, and wouldn't have had any motivation to carry it out. They just copy the words as written without even reading the contents. It's a test of patience more than anything. But Tomoe carefully scrutinized it by reading the surrounding context, so even the poorly scribbled notes were transcribed accurately. It's not just about having an earnest or hardworking personality. It's something impossible to do without strong pride and belief in your work.
それで、どうでしょうか。
ああ、これでいい。ご苦労だったな。
ありがとうございます。それでは、私はこれで。
見ない警部。
As Tomoe rose to her feet, Maeno smiled and pointed at the back door to the left. It was a reward he had personally prepared in case she passed the test.
あの奥にある部屋は仮眠室になってる。 少し寝ていけ。
え？
心配するな。お前用に片付けてある。中からも施錠できるし、変な匂いもしないはずだ。
前野さん。
明日も早い。以後もしっかりな。
After saying that, Maeno began to leave the room with the files in hand. As he turned away, he could see Tomoe's reflection in the glass of the door, deeply bowing down.
やっぱりそっくりだ。
Maeno muttered that to himself and raised his hand as he left the area. It seemed like securing the nap room was going to be a difficult task in the future. Even so, that thought made him happy instead. And today marked 1 week since that day. It seemed like Tomoe had already become completely familiar at the public relations office. She brought in her own coffee maker for odor mitigation, and worked on tasks for Maeno one after another, clearing the place up without any hesitation. It's true that she wasn't intimately familiar with public relations, so she sometimes made mistakes and had to be careful about certain things. But she listened obediently and always paid attention in order to avoid making the same mistake twice. And since she never missed her interim reports, as a boss, he was left with peace of mind.
大したもんだよ。
Of course, as someone who had been working as a detective up until now, she still had her regrets and lingering attachments. And even if she never said it, it was easy to imagine she was baffled by the transfer. But even so, Tomoe never overlooked anything or showed any signs of laziness. Unlike you. In fact, she was enthusiastically working in her current role, treating it as something new to try out. With all that dedication, he was frankly impressed by her ambitious personality.
ああ、そういや未来。お前さん宛てに手紙が来てたぞ。
手紙？ああ、祖母からですね。
After saying that, Tomoe took the letter from Maeno, checked the sender on the back, and nodded as if to say, I knew it. And when she opened it, one slip of paper and several sheets of stationery came from inside.
なんだそれは。
保険の徴収票です。もうすぐ年末調整なので送ってもらったのですが、自宅だと受け取るタイミングが分かりづらくて。すみません。指針の送り先を職場にして。
いや、いいさ。
Well, I mean, if I'm living at my workplace most of the time, I might as well, is how I would look at it.
確かに最近泊まり込みの連続だしな。俺にも責任がある。
Yeah, maybe that might make me a bit of a bad employee in that respect, but I mean, what can you do if you're never home most of the time, you know?
それより
And see, he acknowledges the reason why. Maeno suddenly asked a quick question when he noticed a destination line on the envelope.
別に名前をひらがなで書かなくても間違えたりはしないのにな。巴って字が読めないやつなんてそんなにいないぞ。
ああ、違います。私の本名、実はひらがな書きなんです。
え？
だから学生時代は南井巴ってひらがなで書いていました。漢字の巴に変えたのは警察学校に入ってからです。
そうなのか。しかしなんで親からもらった名前を変えたんだ？ああ、いや、この質問は僭越だったな。
Thinking he was prying too deep into personal territory, Maeno raised his hands and said sorry, intending to cut off this line of conversation. However, Tomoe thought for a moment, then slowly shook her head and interrupted him.
警察学校を受験するとき、祖母が教えてくれたんです。私の父は、本当は私の名前を漢字の巴にしたかったんだって。 源平合戦に出てくる女豪傑の巴御前にあやかったそうです。
One of the generals serving under Genji was Minamoto no Yoshinaka. I've heard that name before. And his wife was Tomoe Gozen. They say she even dressed in armor and wielded a longsword to fight her foes. So, he wanted his firstborn daughter to be a woman with a strong will and a courageous heart. And that was why her father had decided to name his daughter Tomoe.
でも、お母さんはそれに反対だったみたいですね。勇ましい女の子より可愛い女の子に育ってもらいたいって。
Your mom's lame.
それに学校の友達にも読みやすい名前の方がきっと変なあだ名もつけられなくていいはずだと。だからひらがなが気になったんですよ。
If I were you, I would rather be heroic and weird rather than cute and boring. That's how I would certainly argue it. It was the same with her sister Monica. In fact, he wanted to use the kanji for yen when writing her name, since it came from her mother's name. Even if those were trivial considerations, Tomoe could tell how much her parents loved her, and felt deeply grateful.
それでも今の私に必要なのは優しさでも女らしさでもない、強い意志と勇気、そして父さんの意志を継ぐことなんだ。
And a shit ton of coffee and burgers in my belly. That's why Tomoe changed her name to the one her father gave her. It was proof of her determination. And in a sense, it was like a ritual for hammering an indomitable will into herself.
のぶみさんらしいね。
え？
そういや、未来。長官官房の官房長が今度お前と話したいって言ってたぞ。お前が鹿島大って聞いて OB として激励したいんだったさ。
官房長がですか？
ああ。それで、お前に相談があるんだが。
Wonder where this is gonna lead. Well, I got to learn a little bit of history on Tomoe's name. It really does suit her, doesn't it? Drunken Boss's true identity. Is this about you, Minai?
ああ、まったく。
I chased my drowsiness away with a can of coffee while driving through downtown area in the dead of night, dimly lit by the streetlights.
今日は寮に帰って溜まった洗濯物を片付ける予定だったのに。
Running the washing machine in the middle of the night will annoy the neighbors, but I was long overdue for a change of clothes. Even though I've been working so hard that I haven't had time to stop at home, a lady neglecting her hygiene would call her abilities into question. With that in mind, I quickly wrapped up my work and then checked the timetable for the last train right as I was about to head home. But unfortunately, I received a call from the bar where Maeno-san was at. I knew it! It was the shopkeeper, saying, "This man is passed out drunk. Please pick him up." I'm not his wife!
いい年して酒に飲まれてるんじゃないわよ。もう。
Although, Maeno-san himself had apparently asked for me by name, so maybe I should at least be pleased that he trusts me enough to handle situations like this. I'd be annoyed, personally. Or should I scold him for taking advantage of my position? Scold him! He's a drunk! And he stinks! And he's flaky! I was feeling rather conflicted. While thinking it over, I noticed a store sign come into view.
ああ、南 ない警部殿。
Oh, inebriated flaky man.
お迎え、ご苦労である。
You sound like an old man with a throat problem.
ご苦労であるじゃありませんよ。何やってんですか、もう。
Getting drunk off his ass, obviously. I parked the car on the side of the road and got out, then rushed over to Maeno-san sitting in front of the store, with an astonished expression on my face. His suit jacket was laying on the ground, all crumpled up. There was no tie around his neck, and his shirt looked shabby too. It was like seeing a drunken father. When I thought about how I was going to have to drive him home, a gloomy feeling came over me and I wanted to hold my head.
いやいや、こんな遅くにわざわざお迎えなんて。
I'm not your wife. What's stopping you from calling a cab?
ご主人様、そろそろお帰りの時間でございます。なんてか。
Or do you have some drunken wisdom that you would like to share with me in your inebriated state that you only can share with me because your inebriation has basically turned off your mouth's filter? Is that what this is? I'll take the laughter as a yes.
バカ言ってないで早く立ってください。こんなところに座り込んで陣取ってたらお店の営業妨害です。それにあんまり騒がしいと近くのおまわりさんが来ちゃいますよ。
Honestly, I would think the hazmat team should get here first of all that dandruff he keeps leaking all over the place. Who knows what that stuff contains besides dead skin?
やれるもんなら連れて行ってもらおうじゃん。警察官をしょっぴいて恥かいても俺は知らねえからな。
Well, it would certainly make your job at public relations a bit more difficult, I would say. No, you're definitely the one who should be embarrassed here. After muttering that to myself, I decided to just say, okay, for the time being. Grow a spine! Trying to treat a drunkard like a sober man is just a massive headache waiting to happen. Who said anything about treat him like a sober man? Treat him like the drunkard he is.
大体な、俺を誰だと思ってんだ。泣く子も黙る警視正様だぞ。
I'm shaking in my boots.
警視総監の次の次の次に偉い階級なんだぞ。
偉いのはよくわかっていますから、これ以上警察の威信を下げるような発言は控えてください。
You wouldn't want to embarrass your boss now, would you?
こんなところをマスコミの人とかに嗅ぎつけられたらことですよ。
マスコミが怖くて殺が務まるかっての。
Ah, okay, so I should not be afraid of the very thing that we're trying to weaponize against our corrupt colleagues with the establishment, eh? Okay, that makes sense.
逆にこっちが冤罪ふっかけて牢屋にぶち込んでやら。
You ain't a judge.
ダメだこりゃ。始末に追えない。
I seriously thought about just leaving him here and going home. Do it! But that would just make things difficult in the future. So I let out a deep sigh. Difficult how? He'll sober up eventually. Anyway, I've been working in the public relations office for a while now, and I had a lot of respect for Maeno-san, but this incident today might be putting an end to that. Honestly, I'm surprised it hasn't been put to an end to sooner. Maybe I should refuse to work any overtime for a while?
そもそもなんでここまでお飲みになられたんですか？
Because he could, clearly.
接待慣れして俺は酒に強いって前に豪語されていたくせに、飲みすぎるといろんな人に迷惑かかるっておっしゃっていたのは前野さんですよ。
Maybe he lost too many horse races. and his wallet is feeling it. So, in an act of pure irrational depression, he's just drinking himself into a stupor.
まあまあ警部さん、今日だけは勘弁してやってくださいな。
And why should I do that? After saying that, the old man who had been looking after Maeno-san till now, apparently the shopkeeper, cut in with a bitter smile on his face and tried to calm me down. Apparently this old man had a close relationship with Maeno-san.
今日だけってですが、
前野さんがこんなに酔うのは本当に久しぶりでね。だいたいとんでもなく嫌なことがあった時なんですよ。
Oh. Should have guessed.
これくらいの憂さ晴らしは多めに見てやってください。
Oh wait, maybe I think. Why am I second guessing myself? I already guessed. He lost too many horse races.
嫌なこと？あ、
After hearing that, a thought came to me. There was an inquiry meeting the other day in response to an investigation committee report. Oh. It was 2 years ago. There was an incident where a young boy was kidnapped on his way home. As expected, the boy's parents received a call that night demanding ransom. And after making contact with the parents, the police sought an agreement with the mass media to keep the investigation confidential so they could focus their attention on searching for the hostage and arresting the perpetrator. However, they couldn't grasp any clues, and the culprit disappeared immediately after the ransom was handed over. On top of that, they never found the hostage, and the investigation completely stalled. And then, just the other day, 2 years after the incident has passed, a man arrested for some other misdemeanor confessed to the kidnapping during questioning. He said he killed the boy immediately after escaping and buried him in the graveyard of a temple in Tokyo. Based on that information, investigators headed to the scene and discovered skeletal remains just as the subject testified. The curtain closed on this 2-year-old incident in the worst possible way.
犯人逮捕に時間がかかったのは警察の手落ちと言われても仕方がない。だが問題になったのは報道協定のタイミングだった。
After that, an investigative committee was assembled mainly from the personnel department of the National Police Agency, for the sake of finding out the reason they failed to adequately investigate this kidnapping murder case. According to their report, nearby residents of the city where the culprit fled to had apparently identified him as the suspicious person very early on, and they ignored him anyway. In other words, they were asserting that if information had been blocked by the press agreement, or if the agreement was promptly overturned, it may have been possible to not only arrest the criminal, but save the hostage's life too. And so, the mass media criticized the police investigation system, saying their mismanagement of the press agreement is what allowed the criminal to escape. And then, even amongst the police, it became par of the course to blame the person who gave the order. And Maeno-san was being singled out at the inquiry meeting as the one who submitted the press agreement to the chief cabinet secretary. I guess I owe you an apology, Maeno. It looks like your reasons for getting drunk off your ass are a bit more understandable than I initially suspected. Maeno-san likely enacted the information block early on to prioritize saving the hostage, and delayed the termination of the agreement even after the ransom was delivered, in order to avoid psychologically provoking the criminal. But, since this ended in the worst possible outcome, he was facing criticism that he made the wrong decision. Thinking about how absurd and unreasonable that was. I felt completely disconsolate.
落ち込んでいないふりしていたけど、やっぱり辛かったんだ。
Of course, it wasn't about getting a poor review. I'd like to think I'd learned over the past month that he wasn't the sort of person to care about that. So the reason he was so depressed that he needed to drown it with alcohol was likely because he was thinking about the feelings of the victim's family.
前野さん、帰りますよ。
Yeah, I'll be your cab driver for tonight.
立てますか？
After saying that, I tossed my arm behind Maeno-san's back, and with the help of the shopkeeper, we got him back on his feet. Then, I opened the passenger side door. The two of us sat him down on a seat, and I went to pick up his suit laying on the ground and wipe the dirt off of it. Rather than a wallet, I found his police notebook in his inside jacket pocket. Sheesh, you can't even leave this. You can't just leave this out for someone to steal it.
あれ？
When I suddenly looked at the photo in his police notebook, I was shocked. It seemed to be a picture of a young Maeno. What did I say? Young Maeno-san in his early days as a detective. And
お父さん。
there was no way I could mistake my biological father. It was Yuusuke Minai. My dad was staying right beside Maeno-san. I thanked the old man from the store, then started my car. The national highways in the downtown area are always packed during the daytime, but traffic was rather sparse this late in the night. If things stayed like this, I'd be able to reach Maeno-san's house before dawn. I gripped the steering wheel and carefully watched the traffic lights and oncoming vehicles while driving down the road, and took a quick glance at the passenger seat. Maeno-san was sunk into his seat, snoring while sleeping soundly. I figured he'd lose his glasses if he left them on, so I pulled them off his face and slipped them onto my breast pocket. Ah, so you're a glasses guy, huh?
やっぱり。
Seeing him without glasses, I felt something connect from deep within my memories. He was always wearing those thick-framed glasses, so I never noticed until now. But I remember meeting this man before I even became a police officer. But where on earth was it? Where did I meet Maeno-san?
あ、
That's right. I remember. There was a young detective who sometimes accompanied Dad when he came home after a late night out drinking. Dad was older than him, but for some reason he consistently addressed this man with honorific speech. I always thought that was weird. But Mom told me not to ask him too much about police work when he's home, so we never knew why that was. And the answer to that, yes, as of today, it finally felt like I understood.
見ないさ。
Suddenly, Maeno-san murmured something in his sleep. Maeno-san was older than me and of a higher rank, so he had no reason to address me using san, which meant the Minai-san he was referring to was, no doubt,
大丈夫っすよ、見ないさ。あいつは、あんたの娘は、ほんと、あんたにそっくりで。
What an awfully convenient what an awfully convenient and contrived moment that we got here. Him muttering something this specific while drunk and asleep, just within earshot for her Tomoe to hear.
Maeno-san.
My eyes were getting heated, so I started blinking more than usual. The neon signs of the city shining through the windshield suddenly started to blur together. Look what you did, you drunkard. You made Tomoe cry. Hope you're proud of yourself. Who am I kidding? You're not even going to remember what happened last night come tomorrow morning, except for the feeling of a hangover. Next, we have Gone with the Ashes. Not with the wind, but the ashes. I entered the break room and headed back to the back, then gestured Maeno-san to the empty sofa and took a seat in the folding chair across from it. That moment, suffocating feeling had been accumulating, suddenly released all at once, and the strength drained from my entire body. I was tired and nervous. This may have been the first time in my life I had to be so careful about my attitude and remarks. I don't even remember what questions they asked.
お疲れさん。どうだ？初めての広報プレゼンの自己採点は。
How's the hangover?
0点です。
ほう、謙虚というか、えらく弱気だな。初めてという割になかなか度胸が座って、説明もわかりやすくまとまっていたと思うんだが。
でも突っ込まれどころが満載で、まだまだ調査不足でした。前野さんがあそこでフォローしてくださらなかったらどうなっていたことか。
まあそういう意味では満点には程遠いか。大負けに負けてギリギリ量ってところかな。
ありがとうございます。
I could only interpret Maeno-san's praise as flattery, but for the time being, I turned to him and bowed my head. But no matter how I looked at it, it wasn't a good result, or even passable. If I was the one doing the grading, if I were the one doing the grading, I'd give it failing marks and demand supplementary training.
情けない。
A sense of introspection and self-loathing came over me, so I clung to my head. I wanted to turn back time and try again many times before, but I'm not sure if I ever felt as strongly as I did today. And up until now, I've always tried to present a fearless personality when I entered the big stage. But I was reminded once again that I was still immature and struggled with situations outside my expectations. If I had been alone on that stage like we originally planned, I might have broken down in tears. There are people out there with far more knowledge and experience than me. Scholarly people with deep insights and analytical skills. I never realized how difficult it is to offer explanations and make suggestions for people like that.
心のどこかでうぬぼれていたんだと思います。研究所の所長と総務部長が絶賛してくれたから、その勢いでいけるかなって。すみませんでした。
そんなに落ち込むな。プロファイリング分析の現場導入についてはほとんど反対意見や不足点への指摘がなかったじゃないか。
Buy me some hot coffee.
犯罪心理学と毎日向き合っている連中相手にそこまでやれたんだ。もっと胸を張れ。
Maeno-san handed me a can of coffee he'd bought from the vending machine as he said that. Yep. It was cold, so when I grabbed it, I held it against my forehead to relieve the burning feelings inside my head, and started to calm down a little. Somebody fix the vending machine! The coffee's cold!
まあ連中も単純にプロファイリング分析の試験導入の話だと思って割と楽観的に構えていたようだしな。テレビ局が介入してくるなんて予想外だったんだろうさ。
確かに難色を示されるとは覚悟しておりましたが、まさかここまでとは思いませんでした。科警研の方々は最新の犯罪知識や情報と日々関わっている分、メディアの力を十分に理解なさっていると期待していただけに、正直意外な思いです。それともまだテレビ媒体は低俗なものとみなされているのでしょうか。
それもあるだろうが、一番の問題はテレビに出せば失敗した際に言い訳ができないってことだろう。
Yep. Once it's on the global market, either it succeeds or dies on its own merits.
初めのうちは小規模な、そして成功率の高い事件で試験運用することで点数を稼ぎ、信用度を得た上で徐々に現場へと浸透させる。それが彼らの理想だ。しかしテレビで流されるとなると、どうしても話が大掛かりなものになってしまう。成功すれば評判は一気に上がるが、失敗すれば今まで慎重に研究を重ねてきたものが全部ぶち壊しになるかもしれない。成功した時の効果よりもリスクの方を警戒する。原点主義の研究畑の人間にはよくあるマイナス思考だよ。そんな顔をするな。そもそも考え方や価値観のズレというよりも文化そのものが違うんだ。法医学の分野は法学の分野内と言いつつも、実際には医学や心理学の類、科警研の職員と会った奴らはみんな最初その違いに戸惑うらしいぞ。
ええ、実際私もちょっと驚きました。
NRIPS, the National Research Institute of Police Science. They are an organization affiliated with the National Police Agency, responsible for developing forensic technology and investigation theory necessary to conduct scientific investigations in order to encounter increasingly sophisticated and intelligent criminals. In this time, thanks to being introduced to the Secretariat of Commissioner of National Police Agency, who just happened to attend the same university as me, I was able to ask for researchers to be assigned on a certain task. Based on the material I provided the other day, we would conduct a trial operation of profiling analysis in the field. And the progress of the operation would be televised with the help of key TV stations.
プロファイリング分析の捜査内容をマスコミに公開する？
はい。現在未解決のまま迷宮入りになりかけている事件をサンプルにして、その犯人の存在と足跡を調査する経緯と手法を問題のない範囲内でテレビ局側に提供します。そこでこのマニュアルを導入することで、捜査がいかに効率化されたものになるかをアピールする番組を制作放映してもらうのです。それによって世間的な認知度が向上すれば、全国の警察関係者たちもプロファイリングに対して関心を寄せて、導入に前向きな姿勢になってくれるのではないか。そう私ども広報室は考えました。その上での今回のご提案です。
The researchers participating in the presentation were stunned when they heard that, and made no effort to hide their confusion. Introducing profiling analysis to on-site investigations was something NRIPS had already considered many times before. But with nothing to prove its efficacy, it was always brushed aside. Moreover, since there are very few experts capable of teaching the methodology, they've been putting off the idea for a long time. But the other day, a female police officer working for the Public Relations Office freely provided them with a manual that could be used as an instructional reference, so introducing it to on-site investigations once again became a topic of discussion. Up until that point, it was something that NRIPS could hardly even dream of. so they weren't quick to agree with the idea of broadcasting its contents on TV.
試験導入ならば、テレビやマスメディアを介入させるのは少々大げさではないかね。データ収集を主目的に置いて、組織はシンプルにまとめた方が良いと思うが。
それに、警察の捜査技術を公開するのはリスクが高い。犯罪者に裏をかかれる危険性についても考慮すべきだろう。
確かに、皆様のご懸念はもっともだと思います。しかし、これまで意見交流会などでも、プロファイリング分析についての言及が何度となく行われましたが、実際の事件現場にて導入された例は皆無です。また、信用度の基礎となるデータを収集しようにも、現場捜査員たちの賛同と協力を得ることができず、宙に浮いた理論となっておりました。それはやはり、知識や技術の有用性よりも、イメージの欠如が一番の要因だったのではないでしょうか。
Based on reading the papers and manuals on profiling analysis, it was hard to tell how efficient it actually was, and difficult to grasp how useful it might be. Also, an experienced detective has the intuition and skills they've gained over that time that increases their efficiency, but that doesn't mean they'll understand how to fit it into their methods. With that in mind, even after collecting data in this trial operation, investigators presented with the results may not understand how to utilize it, and may decide to just put it off. But, what if profiling analysis is actually introduced to the field investigators via a video documentary? At that point, an experienced detective would likely be able to understand which points are important, and how it differs from conventional investigation. And it would allow them to make their own modifications to tweak it to better fit the image of their own investigation methods. In other words, to make a mathematical analogy, this program exists to show examples of how to use the use of certain formulas and theorems to people who otherwise have no idea where and when to use them. And a video is the easiest method to understand.
確かにそれも一つの方法とは言えるでしょう。しかしそれにしてもなぜあなた方広報室がそんな企画を。あなたたちには今回何のメリットもない話じゃありませんか。
そうです。それにそもそもそういった番組企画を立てるという行為は明らかに候補としての職務を逸脱していると思います。一体あなたたちはそれによって何を得るおつもりなのですか。
それは
the increasingly good reputation of my colleagues in other departments?
ああ、その点につきましては説明が不足しておりました。今回の企画はむしろ警察庁長官官房長、ひいては警察庁本部からの提案を現場に浸透させるための方策とご理解ください。広報室はその意向を組んで皆様にご相談申し上げているだけなのです。
Maeno-san, who had been sitting quietly beside me, cut in at the perfect time to save me from fumbling for the right words. And then he gave me a look before continuing.
プロファイリング分析は今後の科学捜査にとって非常に役立つ捜査理論になると以前、ただ現場の方々は今までの勘と経験に頼ったやり方を変えるだけのメリットがあるのか、あるならその証拠をよこせとの一点張りで試験運用すらままなりませんでした。長官官房長もそういった状況を打破することこそが必要と考えておりましたので、今回の企画ご提案と相なったわけです。
ええ、それは所長と総務部長より聞き及んでおります。ただ広報がなぜ官房長のサポートを。長官官房からのご依頼は通常ならば制作企画から通達いただくものと理解しておりましたが。
適材活用ですよ。ここにいる南井警部はもともと現場の刑事でした。もっと遡りますと、数年前に欧米で研究されているプロファイリング分析の存在を最初に警察庁の意見交換会で紹介したのが現在の茨城県警捜査一課長本庄警視。そして彼女は その本庄一課長の下で約3年間働き、推薦組として選抜された際には彼の口添えがあったほどの逸材です。
As soon as Maeno-sen mentioned Honjo-sen's names, the eyes of the researchers transformed from disdain and distrust to a hint of interest and curiosity. In fact, I didn't know about it until he told me. My former boss, Honjo-sen, was one of the nation's most respected experts on profiling analysis. Honjo-sen had actually published papers on improvements to criminal investigation methodologies and shared them at NPA-sponsored exchange meetings, campaigned for their necessity.
そんなに偉い人だったんだ。
I keenly realized what a blessed environment I had lived in. In fact, if I hadn't had the opportunity to work under Honjo-san, I wouldn't know anything about profiling, even today. Despite my thoughts racing, Maeno-san looked at the changed expressions on the researchers, then leaned forward and continued.
実際彼女が皆さんにご提供申し上げた資料は、その本庄氏が携わってきた事件記録が元になっており、彼の許可と協力なしには成し得ないものでした。この点からも、ここにいる南井警部が現場捜査員たちとの強いつながり、それも有力な人材とのコネクションを現在も所持していることを信用してもらえるかと思います。故に、皆さんの意向や方針を伝達する仲介役としては最も適任ではないかと考えた長官の指示で、本企画の担当者とさせていただいた次第なのです。
確かに。現場の捜査員たちの反発をいかにして防ぐかが我々の一番大きな課題でした。そのつてを持っている人に仲介してもらえるのは非常に心強いです。
そして先ほど広報室としてのメリットとおっしゃいましたが、我々はご存知の通り、警察の各機関の活動内容や捜査情報を集約し、それを特定、あるいは不特定の方面へと差し向けるのが本来の職分です。故に我々にとっては、警察庁長官官房長が打ち出したプロファイリング分析を現場へと導入させるという方針表明を効率的に現場へと浸透させることが今回の役割。それに従っただけのことですので、特にメリット、まして利益的なものを求めるものではないと考えております。他に何かご不安を抱かれているものはありますか？我々としては同じ警察庁の仲間ですから、できる限りそれらを解消するお手伝いをしたいと考えております。どうぞご遠慮なくおっしゃってください。
いや、よくわかりました。そういった疑念を取り払って考えれば、確かに今回の企画は科警研にとっても良い話です。
After saying that, the researcher dressed in a white coat sitting in the head seat smiled and nodded while turning to the others to get their agreement. Looking at the name tag, his last name was Soma. I later learned from Maeno-san that he was a powerful man with an authoritative role in forensic medicine.
この企画につきましては、これから研究所の幹部を交えた上で内容を吟味し、後日改めてご返事させていただきます。本日はありがたいご提案と長時間のご説明をいただきましてありがとうございました。
The director politely thanked Maeno-san and myself, but I was the one who should be grateful to them for offering us an opportunity to explain things, so I quickly bowed back to him.
本当に助かりました。前野さんが助け舟を出してくれなかったらどうなっていたか。
俺は事実を言っただけだぞ。それに本当の意味でお前を後押ししてくれたのはむしろ本庄さんだ。今度は改めてお礼を言っておけよ。
はい。
In cases like that, it's important to remember that personal strength and talent are less important for winning the trust of others than personal connections and titles. I used to feel an inferiority complex about that, but that's undeniably the truth. So now, I'm grateful for all the people who have helped me and try to avoid being overconfident in myself. I engraved self-discipline into my heart so that I'd never forget that attitude.
日はこのまま寮に直帰していいぞ。ここしばらくあまり寝てないんだろ。
あ、でも疲れなのはむしろ。
俺のことは気遣わなくてもいい。気まぐれに首を突っ込んで、その場の思いつきで勝手に口を挟んでいただけだからな。ちょうどいい憂さ晴らしだったよ。
でも私、前野さんのフォローがなければ、広報がなんで口出ししてくるって言われた時、とっさに反論ができなかったと思います。本当にありがとうございます。
虎の意を借りるのは狐の得意技だ。王道を言うお前さんには真似は無理。というか、覚えなくてもいいことさ。
Maeno-san tossed his empty can of coffee into a nearby trash can. The throw was well controlled and accurate, thanks to his time playing baseball.
まあ、あとは結果待ちだな。
So you got experience throwing balls around, do you?
それほど時間をかけないと言ってたし、週明けには返答をもらえるだろう。それまでは今日のことを忘れて、いつもの仕事に励めよ。
どうなんでしょうか。あの資料と今日の説明で、科警研は動いてくれるでしょうか。
そうだな。俺の見たところ五分五分。
Little coin toss, huh?
いやー、四分六分といったところか。
Or not.
成功の可能性が4ですか？
不満か？まあ、それでも最後まで質問が絶えなかったことを鑑みれば上々の出来だった。お前さんはよくやったと思うぞ。
すみません。
あ？
広報室にとって今回のプロジェクト提案はほとんど見入りがないものと分かっています。逆に余計な作業を増やしてしまうことになるかもしれません。なのに長官官房長や科警研の偉い人に口添えをしてもらって。
The initial motivation for this was that case from 3 months ago. Because I wanted to investigate the case of Nagisa Ozaki-san's death and find out more about the key witness, Reina Ryugu. I realized it was based on my own lingering regrets. But when I happened to contact Fujita-kun a few days ago and heard the progress on the case, it was unbearable. The incident still held mysteries the police couldn't comprehend. And though I'd like to be involved, I'm stuck here doing busy work. This case is not over yet. And even now, there might still be something I can do. I want to do my best to respond to the feelings of the late Ozaki-san. When I reached that decision, I assembled a plan that cleverly deviated from the Public Relations Office's usual line of work. Honestly, I was prepared for Maeno-san to push back when I first submitted the proposal to him. Still, I put all my heart into it and planned to bet on that chance, even if the probability of success was only 1%. But, surprisingly enough, Maeno-san approved of the plan right from the get-go. In fact, he even spoke to the commissioner and the director of NRIPS about it, turning my pipe dream of a project into something feasible.
ただでさえ多忙な立場の人なのに。
And I know the reason Maeno-san cares about me so much. That's why I was grateful for the depths of his feelings. But more than that, I was sorry.
なあ、未来。お前、肺吹き法って知ってるか？
肺吹き法？戦国時代とかで行われていた伝統的な金の精錬法のことですか？
The topic came completely out of the blue, so I felt lost as I answered. Maeno-san said you're very knowledgeable before continuing his story.
鉱山から掘り出された金の鉱石は、一見ただの石ころとほとんど変わりない。それを砕いてふるいにかけ、煮えたぎった鉛の中に放り込んで溶かす。 そしてその溶けた液状の混合金属を灰と混ぜ合わせることで鉛と金を分離させる。誰が考え出したか知らんが大したやり方だ。灰はそれ単体では土ぼこりと同じくどこにでもあるものだ。だがそれがなければ金は鉛と混じり合ったまま本来の存在価値を発揮することができない。俺たちスタッフはその灰だと昔教えられたことがあった。
Any organization has people in important positions who are more or less ambitious and upward rising with their own selfish desires. Those people try to make others recognize their great abilities and the value of their existence, sometimes even taking risks to try and to achieve something. But if their selfish actions are taken too far and become self-righteous, or even risk becoming tyrannical, in some cases that can be detrimental to the organization. It's easy to deny them and reject that, but shutting them down in an overly high-pressure way can offend the person and reduce their motivation, ultimately losing out on some of the utility they could have brought. In which case, it would be better to keep them under control and steer them in the right direction. Assembling the tactics and strategies behind the combat unit, while considering the strengths and weaknesses of your staff, and leading them to apply those skills effectively. That was the role of the staff officer.
実際そういった才能のある連中と代替して同じことができるほどスタッフは偉いわけじゃない。だから引け目もあるし、命令を下す資格があるかと言われたら反論できない。かといって、自分の能力のみを信じる彼らの好き勝手にやらせていたら、それはもう組織とは呼べん。第一本来の能力も発揮できないだろう。
ええ、確かにその通りです。
しかし逆に、そのスタッフが下り顔でふんぞり返ったり、傲慢に見下した態度を取れば当然現場の彼らは面白く感じるわけがない。まして自分の点数稼ぎのために彼らの手柄や名声を横取りするようなことがあったら、誰もその命令に従ったりしなくなる。だからスタッフは常に裏方として、表には出ない存在であらねばならない。うまくいけば、華々しい手柄や名声は全て彼らのもの。俺たちスタッフは黙ってその祝勝会から去るだけさ。見ない。そういう生き方。お前、自分が前に立たなければ気が済まないか？それとも、組織のため、そして何か別の大きなもののために無視になれるか？
私は。
暇な時にでも考えてみるといいさ。そんじゃあ俺は次の打ち合わせがある。お前はゆっくり休め。お疲れさん。
After saying that, Maeno-san left the break room. I watched him from behind as he went, and in silence gazed up at the ceiling for a while longer. At least they're making progress. Receipt and ticket.
あ、これください。
Oh, speaking of Nagisa, I noticed the magazine at the store counter with only one copy left, so I grabbed it and paid the cashier. Wait a minute. Does receipt and ticket refer to her, Yeah, because she did get a travel ticket to Hinamizawa that was discovered prior to her murder, right? I noticed a magazine at the store counter with only one copy left, so I grabbed it and paid the cashier. Then I put the change and the receipt in my wallet, and spread the magazine open while walking toward the ticket gate.
今月号買い逃して諦めてたんだけど、こんなところで見つかるなんてラッキーかも。
I flipped through the magazine I always subscribed to as I muttered that to myself, and found my favorite special feature page. They say it's bad manners to read a magazine while walking, but I just couldn't wait and had to check it.
今週の運勢は、
You're into the fortune-telling stuff, are you?
よかった。
I was filled with anxiety and anticipation as I turned the page. And when I saw what was written in my column of the horoscope, I couldn't help but jump up and cheer. The horoscope results showed 90% luck. Oh, man. So basically, the horoscopes are saying, in retrospect, you're a 10%er, huh? Ouch. Is it just a coincidence? Or am I really that lucky? My good luck charm was actually in my bag right now. The contents were a good omen, so somehow my mood started feeling cheerier. Fortune telling may be nothing but nonsense. But hearing such a proclamation of good luck right before I'm about to meet Reina brought me so much happiness, gave me more and more courage to meet up with her. I took a small package out of my bag and gave it a look. It's a present in a cute gift bag for when I meet Reina. I bought it to show proof of how much I care about her and want to reconcile with her. I wonder if she'll like it. Or rather, I wonder if I'll even be able to hand it over to her. Fear and anxiety, combined with a hint of anger and sorrow, made me feel lost and hesitant, even now, trying to drag my feelings down to the darkest depths. But I'm going. I definitely will meet Reina. I said that to myself so many times to inspire my timid heart, while marching forward one step at a time. It'll be all right. Even the horoscope said I'd have good luck. Besides, I spoke with Reina on the phone just the other day. I could only hear her words, but her voice and tone were enough to convey her feelings to me, right? I want to meet you again.
よし。
I let out a light shout as I raised my head, then put the magazine in my bag and headed to the ticket gate. If I head for Omaki, there's a highway bus that leaves from there. It'll take just a few hours that way. And then I'll be able to meet Reina. And...
あれ?
That moment, I noticed a ticket fall from the pocket of the man walking in front of me. Here comes the bait. But he didn't seem to notice, because he kept walking forward at a steady pace. I hesitated for a moment, then ran and picked it up. When I caught up right behind him, I braced myself and called out to him.
すみません。これ、落としましたよ。
ああ、こりゃどうも。あれ?
The man smiled as he grabbed the ticket, but when he caught a look at my face, he seemed a little surprised. I don't recognize him. Could I have met him somewhere before?
何か。
いや、ひょっとしてあなたは、尾崎渚さんですか?
Who are you, and how do you know who I am?
そうですけど。
After hearing him say my name, I suddenly braced myself. Why does this man know my name?
ああ、すみません。唐突で失礼しました。実は私、南井警部の部下でして、あなたにお伝えしたいことがあって、今からご自宅にお伺いする予定だったんですよ。
南井さんの？
Yeah, I'm not buying it.
ということは、刑事さんですか？
ええ、そうです。ああ、これ手帳です。信用していただけましたか？
Perhaps concerned about the huge crowd of people in the station, the man very quickly pulled his badge out of his breast pocket and discreetly showed it to me. That was definitely the emblem of the police force. And it was reassuring to learn that this man knew Minai-san's name, so I lowered my guard and turned to him.
それで、ミナイさんが私に何か。
先日、警部宛てにお電話されましたよね。それを聞いた警部の命令で、私がお迎えに上がったんです。要件は直接話したいとのことでしたので、内容はちょっとわからないのですが。
ミナイさんが私に
I wasn't sure what to do, so I hesitated to reply. I was supposed to get on the bus right after this, and head to Hinamizawa today. But Minai-san is always so busy, so I'd be sorry to turn her down when she was willing to spare some time for me. It's a trap. And if I miss this opportunity, it might be a long ways out before I can meet her again. It can't be helped. I was actually planning to arrive at the meeting spot early to give myself time to calm down, but let's take a detour. Plus, Minai-san might be able to give me some good advice ahead of my meeting with Reina. And if I do end up running late, maybe they even drive me there in a police car. Just kidding.
わかりました。でも、この後出かける予定があるので、その時間まででもよろしいですか？
はい、結構です。ご協力感謝します。それでは。
I look at men like this and I think to myself, how can these people sleep at night when they're willing to go after and target children? Even if some of them can justify to themselves as it being a matter of national security. I know when it comes to matters of national security, things aren't exactly meant to be black and white, but still. A 6 on the dice. Let's see what this is.
それじゃあ我々の勝利を祝して乾杯！
乾杯! Kanpai! We all held up our full beer glasses and sang out following Maeno-san's lead. The contents spilled out a bit, but none of us were particularly concerned. Now don't drink a whole keg now, Maeno.
いやー、この寒い時期に冷えたビールってのはなかなかオツだな。こう首の後ろがキャーッと引き締まるっていうか、鍋の熱気を中和して何杯でもいけそうだぜ。
だからって飲みすぎないでくださいね。今日は私も飲んでいますから、ご自宅には送っていけませんよ。
わかってるってのはしつこいな。今日はそんなにビール飲まねえよ。おいおかみ、熱燗3本だ。カーッと胸の奥から燃えたぎるようなやつを頼ま。
日本酒飲んでたら一緒じゃないですか、も
う。お二人さん、いいコンビですね。
The man sitting across from us, Chief Soma of Enrips, curiously watched our interactions while opening another beer bottle. When I noticed that, I quickly took the bottle and said, "Here you go," while filling his glass.
ああ、どうも。気が利くね。ちょっと前野さん、 あんまり年下の女性をいじめちゃいけませんよ。ただでさえあなたは部下や関係者への当たりが厳しいって評判なんですから。調子に乗ってると人事から突っ込まれて、また左門会にかけられますよ。
失礼な。いじめてねえよ。そりゃもう俺は未来に対しては、親が子に接するように優しく海外しく、そして真摯に。
Okay, little Timmy, here is all the paperwork that my boss gave me. Can you please work on this while I go to the horse races? Thank you, little Timmy.
あんたまだ独身でしょうが。
まあ、親子という例えは確かにその通りです。もっとも、ライオンの親子に近い関係ですが。
先人の谷に叩き落として、しごき鍛えられてるってか？そりゃいい。イメージぴったりだ。
No, don't worry. Once I get to the top of that ravine, I'll knock him down it. Revenge is a dish best served cold.
おお、未来。なんだったら本気で谷底に蹴落としてやってもいいんだぞ。
Maeno-sen cut in with a half-teasing, half-serious look on his face. Just a little while ago, I was frightened when he stared at me like this. But now, I had built up enough of a tolerance I could even laugh through it. Plus, Maeno-sen was tough when it came to work, and he'd give a stern scolding anytime I overlooked something. But to keep calm and think through all his points, every single one of them is conscientious and accurate. His strict reproach and warnings were his way of expressing his high expectations in others. After I understood that, I disregarded the concerns from other people at the Public Relations Office and started becoming proactive. So, even if the parent-child relationship is slightly overstating it, it's more like a brother-sister relationship between siblings with a large age gap. Is it selfish of me to see it that way?
ただ、今夜だけは。
Meanwhile, I can hear Yuusuke from beyond the grave screaming, "He was my brother first!" I wanted to go back to the old times, just a little, so I intentionally pretended to be ill-tempered. Seeming to realize that, Maeno-sen had a slight wry smile on his face, and leaned his face closer to look at me from below.
なんだ、未来。お前まだ怒ってるのか？
別に怒ってませんよ。怒ってないけど、ちょっとだけ騙された気分で傷ついてるだけです。
おいおい、騙したなんて人聞きの悪
い。You've been deceiving me from day one, buddy. Don't deny it.
俺がお前に嘘なんて言ったか？
Yes!
嘘は言ってませんけど、本当のことも言ってくれなかったじゃないですか。
Which is lying by omission.
だいたい、前野さんと相馬さんがお知り合いだったなんて、私今日初めて聞きましたよ。しかも、大学の同じゼミの先輩後輩の関係なんて、思いっきり身内じゃないですか。
あれ？前に言ってなかったっけか？
No.
いや、すまん。忘れてたわ。
What a bald-faced lie. He must have intentionally kept silent because he wanted to tease me and make me think I had enemies on all sides when I desperately pleaded with N-Rips to win their cooperation. Looking back on it now, Soma-san always spoke up at just the right time during the presentation, trying to set up the atmosphere in the room to give us an advantage. In other words, I was completely taken in by Maeno-san's plan. I was writhing in agony even though our victory was practically assured from the start. Maeno, you fucking dick! How dare you?
私、あのプレゼンで生きた心地がしなかったんですよ。私より年配の、それもスキルと知識がはるか上の偉い人たちにプロファイリング分析の必要性と協力の要請をするなんて、まさしく釈迦に説法な気分だったんですから。自分が知ったかぶった態度をとってるんじゃないかって、どれだけ気恥ずかしかったか。
ああ、確かにあれは見物だったよな。プロファイリング分析の細かいところにツッコミを入れたら、懸命に動揺を隠そうとしながら返答を絞り出そうとしているのがバレバレですさ。
You see this, Maeno? You humiliated me in front of a live audience.
正直、こっちも笑いをこらえるのが大変だったよ。
And they were stifling laughter too. That's how embarrassing you made me look.
相馬さんもひどいです。私だって絶対皆さんの方がお詳しいって分かっていましたけど。だったらあの時私をからかっていたんですか？私、相馬さんたちからご指摘を受けるたびに自分の勉強不足が申し訳なくて、本当に。
Well, Soma, I guess I'll have to kick your ass down the ravine too, along with mine now.
まあまあ、確かに少し遊びが過ぎたかもしれんな。だが逆にそれが良かったのさ。
As he said that, Maeno-san collected the hot sake that the waitress had just brought, then handed a glass to Soma-san and another to me, with a cheerful smile on his face. Then he filled each glass one by one, before turning to me with a broad grin.
プロファイリング分析の手法は、科警研が数年前から目をつけていた。俺も相馬から何度かその関連の話を聞かされて、本当にそれが確立されれば、事件捜査の革新的な進歩があり得るという期待を持ったもんだ。そして茨城県警の本庄さんが意見交流会で発表したプロファイリングについての論文は、その発端になり得るものではと思えるほどに興味深いものだった。
But even though they preached the consensus that it would be necessary to test it in the field, they never put it into practice. Because NRIPS doesn't have the authority to put together an organization to handle the proposal. Thus, there was no framework for establishing who was in charge in the field and who was responsible. Plus, the connection between NRIPS and field investigators was worse than non-existent. It was negative. Thanks to that, both sides resented one another for getting in the way of their work, or stealing the credit for their accomplishments, so it would be impossible to clear up those doubts. Well, this seems awfully familiar. It's just like our old workplace, where we had the two different divisions constantly trying to one-up each other.
だからこそ、スタッフ系ではなく、現場出身の元刑事が提案し、そして実践に移す手段を持ちかけてきたとき、俺たちはむしろ喝采を上げたのさ。
Apparently, infighting between different departments of the police force seems to be a rather common theme I'm noticing going on here.
俺たちがどれだけ言葉を尽くして正論を並べ立てても、現場との壁はそう簡単には打ち破ることができない。だが、見ない警部。偵察省上層部からのお達しに加えて、現場刑事たちに近いお前さんが橋渡し役を務めるというのなら、おそらく彼らも無下にはせずに耳を傾けてくれるだろう。テレビ局との提携も確実性と秘密主義にこだわりすぎて自情自爆に陥っていた科警研には必要な刺激だった。その可能性に俺たちはかけたんだよ。
相馬さん。
その期待にお前さんは十分すぎるほど応えてくれた。ありがとうな、見ない警部。仲間の分まで感謝させてくれ。
Soma-san gave me a gentle look as he raised his glass in hand. When I first met him, he seemed stiff, prideful, and hard to reach. But he didn't alter his behavior at all just because I was younger or female, so I was impressed by his sincere attitude.
まあ、お前さんから提供された資料を読んだ時から、科警研の所長と総務部長は今回の提案に対して賛成するつもりでいたそうだ。もちろんそれは、本庄さんのネームバリューと、それ以上に官房長の口利きがあったことが大きかったんだがな。そして現場の主任クラスでそれなりに発言力のある奴らには、相馬が事前に根回ししてくれていた。実際のところ出来レースだとお前は不快に思うかもしれないほどに、状況は俺たちにとってフォローだったのさ。
光栄です。 ですが、皆さんのそこまでのご好意に甘えて頼り切ってしまって、結局私は何もできず、皆さんのお気遣いに乗っかっただけで。
I'm riding on the coattails of the great men around me.
そこまで自分を卑下するな、見ない。
Except for you, Maeno. You're just flaky.
俺たちはお前が頼りないから支援したわけじゃない。お前が俺たちの息をしっかり理解できるやつだと見込んだからこそ、遠慮なく力を貸したんだ。その点についてはしっかり胸を張れ。
え？
責任と覚悟を持つ心構えは確かに大事だ。そしてそれを他人に訴えかけるためには、やはり本人が努力している姿を見せるしかないだろう。だがな、それは自分一人で全てを背負わなきゃいけないってことじゃない。得意分野は誰かに任せて、自分は自分にできることを全力でやる。初めから他力本願は良くないが、自分一人でできる範囲も量も、たかだか知れているってことを忘れるな。
前野さん。
それに、勘違いしないでくれよ。俺たちは、お前さんに振り回されたんじゃない。ずっと今まで変えたいと思っていたことを実現するためにな。だから引け目になるな。堂々としていけ。そして、これから先も俺たちの期待に応えてみせろ。それが、お前さんにできる一番の貢献だよ。
ありがとうございます。
Maeno-san, Soma-san, your words are so warm. I've been doing my utmost to persuade the researchers at NREPS. That's why I eschewed sleep, desperately work on compiling these materials. If I failed, I'd be betraying the kindness and support that Maeno-san, the commissioner, the director, and everyone had shown to me. So I continued to feel the heavy responsibility of that. But the truth is, these great people around me are doing this exhausting work for their sake as well. Thank you. And I'm sorry. What a stunted, arrogant way of thinking, believing I had to do something so huge all on my own.
とはいえ、見ない警部。これからがさらに大変だぞ。お前は現場の捜査員や、その責任者に掛け合って、今回のプロジェクトに力を貸してもらえるよう頼んで回らなきゃいけないんだからな。むしろこれからの方が大変かもしれない。現場の連中は抱えている事件だけでも手一杯だから、得体の知れない依頼や要請には当然難色を示すはずだ。思っているほどに簡単なものじゃないぞ。
心します。甘えることなく、今回のように当たって砕ける覚悟で説得に臨みます。
For a moment I thought to myself, I already know that, but I wasn't about to say that, because answering that way would be making light of Maeno-san's thoughtful advice.
ん？おー、来た来た。待ってましたよ。
Just then, the waitress walked in with the hot pot ingredients, as if she could read the atmosphere of the room. Maeno-san cheered as he grabbed it, and then tossed it into the pot without any hesitation.
フグ鍋か。
Ooh, pufferfish, huh? This was actually my first time eating pufferfish. I'm a little worried about getting poisoned, but if I said anything about it, Maeno-san and Suma-san would seriously laugh at me. Getting poisoned is no laughing matter. Fuck them.
本当は俺がぜひともタッチしたかったんですがね。残念ながら今、結構な数の事件鑑識の依頼が重なってて、ちょっと無理っぽいんですよ。今後お手伝いできるのは、せいぜい下準備くらいですかね。
ま、できるやつに仕事が集まるのは仕方ないさ。で、担当は誰になりそうだ？
おそらく、能力的に適しているということで、大内主任じゃないかと。もっとも、若干温情人事も関わっているみたいですがね。
大内か。せめて騎士とか山辺あたりなら色々進めやすかったんだが。 あいつはどうも自分を過信してるところがちょっとな。
大丈夫とは言い切れませんね。もっとも、現場の捜査員たちと積極的に接点を持たない限り、多分問題ないでしょう。そのあたりは、調整役の見ない警部の働きに期待って感じですかね。あとは、
While half listening to the conversation between the two of them, I opened the lid on the pod and gazed at it while feeling distant. Till a few months ago, I thought there was nobody as unlucky as me. But the truth is, I've had an incredible series of good luck. Maeno-san, Somo-san, the Commissioner's Secretariat, the Director of NRIPS, and Hojo-san. I was blessed with so many excellent and influential supporters. It was scary. My hand trembled as I held the ladle. Looking at the current situation, yes. It was like being passed a set of dice and rolling a 6 over and over. On the other hand, I'm wondering what unexpected pitfalls are awaiting beyond this good fortune. That small anxiety floated to my mind, stabbing at my thoughts. But I have no time for fear or hesitation. I need to move forward. I decide I'll keep going.
渚さん、まだまだクリアするものは多いけど、なんとか頑張れそうよ。待っててね。
I'm not gonna lie, I thought I'd be close to the end of these by now. Conspiracy started to move. Okay, you know what? Let's do one more and then I'll call it quits for now. The conspiracy has started to move.
もしもし。ええ、私よ。例の和製ジャンヌ・ダルクちゃんのその後の様子はいかがかしら。
Takano?
まさかただの好奇心よ。別に怖いわけでもないわ。そっちではなんだか大げさなことになってるみたいだけど、私たちの研究計画の差し障りとまではならなそうだしね。警察といっても所詮は法律の枠内でしか力を発揮できないただの公務員。それを支配するご主人様に対してはおとなしく神戸を垂れて尻尾を振る奴らの集まりよ。そんなパワーゲームの中でどこまで頑張れるかお手並み拝見ってところかしら。それで今はどんな感じ？通常ならそろそろ言動とか見かけとかに変化が出てきてもおかしくないんだけど、何か変化はあったかしら？そう。見たところ、取り立てて激しい相打つも見られず、仕事ぶりにも変わったところはなし。周囲の評判も良好ね。ますます興味深いわ。よっぽど入江所長の改良した治療薬が体に適合していたのかしら？ええ、そうよ。症状が末期に至る前兆として、まず周囲の反応に対して猜疑心が強くなる。ちょっとした冗談や失言が自分の存在価値を否定する悪意や敵意に思えてきてね。いわゆる不安神経症って言えばいいのかしら。そのうちありもしない存在や言動を妄想するようになって、
思考が混乱し、精神が錯綜状態に陥る。そこにはもう理性も本能もないわ。ただひたすら錯乱し、現実と虚構がぐちゃぐちゃになった状態から必死に逃れようとあがき、苦しみ、そして絶望へと至る。末期症状に至った時の様子はなかなかに見ものよ。
I'm glad that all the Hinamizawa syndrome sufferers progression into absolute mental insanity amuses you so much.
もうそれは人間じゃない。そうね。はっきり言ってしまえば化け物でしょうね。あら？そんなに私面白がっているように聞こえるかしら？
Apparently I'm not the only one who noticed.
そんなことはないわよ。
Now that's a bold-faced lie.
私はただ学術的に知りたいだけなの。青臭い正義感と綺麗事だらけを並べ立てた信念とやらにすがって邁進するエリートさんが醜くて汚い現実に直面して無力感に絶望した時、どんな風に変わるのか。ほら、よく言うでしょ。高尚な理想と願望を持って勉学に励んでいた輩ほど、その素敵な夢が踏みにじられると自暴自棄になって愚かな暴挙や現実逃避に走るものだと。そのジャンヌ・ダルクちゃん、いえ、女ドン・キホーテと呼んだ方がいいかしらね。
I am not familiar with that name at all.
その子が戦っていた悪魔がただの風車で、信じていた正義が実に脆くて惨めなものだったと知った後、どんな行動に出るのか。ひょっとしたら末期発症を引き起こした状態で錯乱して街中で大暴れするかもね。エリート警官、ストレスから精神を病んで無辜の市民を虐殺なんて結末、想像しただけでも楽しそうだとは思わない？そんなわけだから引き続き監視をよろしくね。野村さんにもくれぐれとお伝えして。それじゃ見ない巴か。
It was a strange feeling. Not quite as strong as Uncle Kozumi, but still backed by state power. She possesses no particular elements that could prove an obstacle to executing the plan. Even if the police force united, it'd be difficult for a small girl to discover the heart of their organization, no matter what gallant show of heroism she put on. No, it's impossible. Besides, even the excuse me. Even the unlikely event of the situation turns precarious. In the current climate, it's our opponents in the Okuno and Chiba factions who will suffer the most direct damage. Not us. Thus, we can safely ignore any such movements. There shouldn't be anything to worry about at all, and yet... I suddenly looked at the desk and saw the medical records for Tomoe Minai. In addition to the blood test results from when she came to Hinamizawa half a year ago, the report also summarized her personal information. Detailed in there was a history of losing her parents in a fire, and her police career all the way from the academy up to the present day. And Reina gave me a strange feeling that something was out of place. No, that's not it. It wasn't that something was out of place. In fact, it was the opposite. Yes, it was deja vu. She lost her parents and everything she had in an absurd accident. And despite being pushed down to the depths of misery, she crawled her way up in order to succeed the will of the deceased. With the stubbornness of a weed. We're the same. Our circumstances were disgustingly similar. When I thought about that, the indescribable emotion I was feeling was exacerbated even further, against my wishes.
くだらない。本当にくだらないわ。
I shook my head and tossed the report in the desk drawer. So be it. The victor and the outcome are obvious anyway, so it's fine to let you keep struggling. But know this, Missy. I commend you for the hardships you've overcome and the courage and valor you've displayed. But there's one thing you need to remember. I will never acknowledge you. Never! Tomoe doesn't need your acknowledgement anyway. She's perfectly capable of rising to the top of the mountain all by her lonesome, without you cheering her on or anything. In all due seriousness, though, I mean, yeah, I guess Tomoe and Takano do indeed have some pretty similar backgrounds in a lot of respects, don't they? I wonder if the similarities between these two will end up playing a part later on somehow. Probably will. Well, I guess that last bit was definitely somewhat interesting, if only just to have the similarities between these two characters pointed out to me. Anyway, yeah, like I said, I thought it would only just take one more episode just to get through the remainder of these, but we still got 6 more left to go through. Yeah, there's no way I shouldn't be able to finish this. I've finished what's left of these next time, so yeah, I will go ahead and end things here, and next time I will try to finish what's left of these connecting fragments for sure. Otherwise, I guess it'll all be done when it's done, I suppose. But again, at this point, considering that there's only 6 of them left, I definitely can't see it taking more than just one more episode to just get through these. And then we can move on to the next arc. So, with all that being said, I hope everybody enjoyed today's latest episode of the Higurashi When They Cry Console Arcs. If you did, and you'd like to see more content from me, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Take care.